Unsolved.
The JonBenet Ramsey case? Don't believe the lies. Now you have heard Patsy and John's account of what happened Christmas night in 1996 and the following morning, and they've muddied the waters. But here's the truth of the matter. 1. John and Burke went to bed shortly after they returned home that night. Patsy and JonBenet were up, and JonBenet had the fresh pineapple. 2. Patsy attempted to put JonBenet to bed, but JonBenet was not listening to her mother, and things got heated and out of control, and Patsy struck JonBenet with the marble base of one of her trophies that caused the serious skull injury. 3. Patsy attended to JonBenet and considered calling an ambulance, but JonBenet was too gravely injured. 4. Patsy had no choice but to end JonBenet's life, so Patsy conceived of the strangling by the garrote to create the foreign faction angle. 5. Patsy wrote the phony ransom note solely on her own. She changed up her handwriting the best that she could. 6. Patsy's plan was that John would help her cover up this incident in the morning. He would remove JonBenet's dead body from the house and obtain the ransom money. Later, they would tell the police that the exchange went bad and JonBenet was found dead. 7. By 5:30 in the morning, Patsy was exhausted, very depressed, and just wanted the ordeal to be over. 8. Patsy screamed for John. He heard her story about JonBenet being missing and the ransom note. Yet John told Patsy to call the police, and Patsy called the police. First, you're told the lie that JonBenet fell asleep in the car and was carried to bed by John. This is not true, because the bowl of pineapple on that table and the fresh pineapple found in JonBenet's digestive system proves that she ate pineapple shortly after coming home that night, and it was more than an hour before she was killed. The next lie that you're told is that JonBenet was in bed. Look at the bed. Her pillow's not up in the right place. The covers are pulled down. Patsy was putting her to bed and maybe took off her sweater and pants and put on the long johns, but she never actually got in bed to go to sleep. Something happened. Words were exchanged. JonBenet said something inappropriate or something that upset Patsy greatly, and Patsy struck JonBenet on the head with something that was in her hand and was heavy and hard and fractured JonBenet's skull. Patsy could see that JonBenet was gravely injured and that she was the one that did it, so she decided to cover it up. The next lie that we're told is that some intruder kidnapper did this, tied this knot like this on her wrist with some white nylon cord found at an arts and crafts store. This is not a rope. This is not something some child molester comes in with and ties up his victim. Now, Patsy either made the garrote and strangled JonBenet with it to end her life, or she wrote the ransom note first, thought of this idea of a foreign faction, and then made this garrote to fit with that story. But nevertheless, Patsy tied the nylon cord to one of her paintbrush handles to make it look like a foreigner had killed JonBenet. Patsy wrote the ransom note, and it was long for a reason, and hence it has the multiples of the bills and needing a large suitcase or attaché to carry JonBenet's dead body from the house. And it's threatening multiple times because JonBenet was already dead, and so they were going to find JonBenet's dead body. And you can tell that Patsy wrote the ransom note on her own, because at the end it says these statements to John. It's up to you now, John. Don't try to grow a brain, John. Just follow the plan, John. In the morning, Patsy yelled for John, and John came down, and he looked at the ransom note, or heard about the ransom note, and to Patsy's surprise, he said, "Call the police." But that wasn't her plan. She thought that John would pay the ransom, and they would wait for the call, and he would go to the bank and get the money, and then she would break it to him what happened. And she assumed that John would help her with her plan to avoid being prosecuted. Patsy killed JonBenet solely on her own, and she covered it up on her own, and she felt that John would help her in the cover-up in the morning. But things got confusing, and John asked her to call 911. But John fell in line later when he discovered that Patsy had killed JonBenet and did all these things to cover it up. And that's why John obtained separate lawyers for them and proceeded the way that he did. Well, this ends this episode of Unsolved, and tomorrow we'll have the Lizzie Borden case, and then the following day or that night we will have the Zodiac Killer case. See you the next time.